What's up everyone, it's Mikey B here again and welcome to my Rome 2 information video series, and in this episode we're going to be looking at the sea regions and naval ports on the campaign map, and I'm going to be discussing some details with you guys about how they work and what to expect from them in the game. So a sea region, just in case you don't know, is the division of the ocean around regions on the map, so like the Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean and the ocean around Northern Europe and Britain. Factions can place boats and navies in these regions to gain control of them, and the only way to remove an enemy from one of these regions is by dislodging them, or the commander of that navy moves them off the region. So there's different ownership types of a region. So you have control, which is where you own all the ports that are adjacent to that sea region. There is sharing it, where another faction has a port that shares the same sea region as you, and you have the contested stance, which is where an enemy faction, like your neighbor could be an enemy faction, and they also have a port in the same sea region as you. And each of these have their own advantages and disadvantages. Before we go on to talking about the advantages and disadvantages, navies also have their own stances just like armies can. And these also affect the regions that they're in, although not much information has been shared about the stance system for naval units at the moment. So when you're in control of a sea region, penalties to maritime commerce from piracy are low, and that's probably because your boats are patrolling the area, and I would assume that the more boats you have, the safer you are from pirates and things like that. The replenishment rate is increased both at sea and at the port, and naval recruitment costs are reduced. So when you're sharing a sea region with an ally or a neutral faction, you suffer moderate penalties from piracy. The replenishment rate is increased a little bit at the port, but not at all in the sea. And recruitment costs are not affected whatsoever, so they stay at the normal price if you're sharing. And finally, when you're contesting a port with an enemy, penalties to maritime commerce and piracy are high, obviously because of enemy raids if you want to roleplay. Replenishment rate is not buffed in the port and is stopped altogether at sea, which is obvious. And naval recruitment costs are actually increased this time, so it costs more to launch ships from a port that's in enemy territory. If a faction doesn't own any ports and it's adjacent to a sea region, it will be set to either neutral or hostile, and in either case no recruitment or replenishment rate takes place. Maritime commerce penalties are pretty much non-existent and irrelevant because you don't have them if you don't have a port, but you have access to raiding that region, so that's pretty interesting. And that's all the information I've got for you today about the sea regions and naval ports. I'll continue to keep you guys updated, so remember to subscribe and check out some of my other videos in the meanwhile, because I do let's plays and all that things. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.